The crack of Derek Mason's hand across Sarah Carter's face echoed through Romano's diner at exactly 9:47 on a Thursday night in October. Not loud, a diner at closing time swallows sound-scraping chairs, clanking dishes, exhausted small talk between people who work too hard for too little. But the 8-year-old girl in the corner booth heard it. Lily Carter's chocolate milk stopped halfway to her lips. Brown eyes too old for such a young face locked on the parking lot window. Her mother's head snapped sideways from the impact. Lily didn't flinch, didn't gasp. The tears that should have come stayed locked behind a wall she'd built by age 5 when crying only made things worse. Through the rain-streaked glass, Derek's silhouette emerged from the black F-150. 6'2", ex-firefighter shoulders rage-coiled in every muscle beneath the Riverside Fire Department windbreaker. The cherry glow of his cigarette pulsed like a heartbeat in the darkness. 3 times in the last hour that truck had circled the building, hunting. Inside Romano's, the fluorescent lights hummed their familiar tune. Lily set down her milk with the precision of someone who'd learned that sudden movements drew attention. Small hands pressed flat against the red Formica table, anchoring, steadying. The Marine's jacket she wore hung to her knees, sleeves rolled up 6 times so her fingers could emerge. She touched the name tape sewn above the left pocket. Carter. Dad, I need the kind of help you can't give anymore. The unspoken prayer dissolved into the diner's stale air, thick with decades of bacon grease and burnt coffee. But in the corner booth locals called the biker spot sat a man who'd been watching everything for the past 3 hours. Jack Morrison was 62 years old and carried the smell of 3 decades worth of choices. Coffee grounds, motor oil, the particular metallic tang of a man who'd seen too much death and somehow kept breathing anyway. The scar cutting down his left face from temple to jaw, courtesy of Viet Cong shrapnel in February 1973, ached in the October cold. Always did. 52 years later, that piece of metal still lived in there, too close to nerve clusters for any surgeon to risk removing. The VA doctors called it manageable pain. Jack called it Tuesday. He'd nursed the same cup of coffee since 7 that evening. Frank Romano, who owned the place and wore the same Hells Angels patch Jack did, knew better than to ask why. Warriors developed instincts, the kind you couldn't teach in any training manual, the kind that kept you alive when everything else said you should be dead. And tonight, every instinct Jack possessed was screaming. Something wrong, something dangerous, something that tasted like smoke and blood and the particular flavor of violence about to break containment. His right hand rested on the scarred table surface, fingers unconsciously touching the red bandana tied around his wrist. 29 years old, that piece of cloth, faded from washing, stained in ways that never quite came out no matter how much detergent or how hot the water. Bloodstains are forever when they mean something. Linda Morrison, age 7, abducted June 14, 1995. Blood type O negative. Last seen Riverside Park 3:47 in the afternoon. Never found. Jack didn't allow himself to think her name often. Thinking led to remembering. Remembering led to the kind of pain that Budweiser couldn't drown and VA therapy couldn't touch. And 62 years on this broken planet hadn't managed to dull even slightly. But tonight, watching this child in her oversized military jacket, watching her refuse to cry, when every cell in her body probably wanted to scream Linda's name, whispered through his mind like gun smoke. Not again, not on my watch, not this time. Frank Romano approached with the coffee pot. 67 years old grandfather to 11, the kind of man who'd witnessed 4 wars through other men's eyes and one through his own son's flag-draped casket. He'd run this diner for 43 years, seen enough to know when the barometric pressure of violence was about to spike. You planning to do something about that? Frank's voice barely carried over the distance between them. His chin jerked toward the window where Derek paced in the rain-slicked parking lot like a caged animal that had just remembered it had teeth. Jack's jaw set. Some debts can only be paid in blood. Frank poured coffee nobody had requested. Which side of that equation you planning to be on? The side that stops little girls from disappearing? Jack Frank. The single word dropped between them with the weight Marines use before firefights. The tone that said the conversation was over and the decision already made, and nothing short of death would change the trajectory of the next few minutes. How many years I've been coming here? 28. Ever seen me walk away from a fight that mattered? Frank set down the pot. The glass rattled against the burner. Outside, Derek's truck engine growled to life. Inside, Sarah Carter gathered her purse with hands that shook so badly the contents spilled across the booth. Wallet, keys, pill bottles. The mathematics of the situation were simple, brutal, inevitable as gravity. You're 62 years old. Man out there's got 20 years on you and nothing left to lose. Jack touched his scar, touched the bandana, felt the weight of 30 years of failure he'd never forgiven himself for and probably never would. Then I better make sure I win. Sarah Carter stood on legs that barely supported her weight, 97 pounds. Terminal pancreatic cancer eating through her from the inside out. Skin the color of old paper. Eyes too bright with the fever that came from a body consuming itself. She'd been beautiful once. Pictures on her phone showed a woman with full cheeks and laughter in her eyes. That woman had died somewhere in the 6 years since she'd married Derek Mason. What remained was a ghost learning to haunt her own life. Lily slid out of the booth, tiny hand finding her mother's. They moved toward the door like condemned prisoners approaching the gallows. Slow, inevitable. Knowing exactly what waited, but unable to change the fundamental nature of their reality. Derek met them at the exit. Up close, the man assembled into a collection of warning signs Sarah had spent 6 years making excuses for. Whiskey breath, not beer. The hard stuff that meant he'd been drinking since noon. Clenched fists with knuckles that showed fresh splits from hitting something. Probably the steering wheel, probably the dashboard. Wild eyes that didn't quite focus and couldn't quite hide the calculation happening behind the rage. Get in the truck. Not loud. Quiet was worse. Quiet meant he'd moved past the screaming phase into the cold, deliberate space where broken bones happened. Derek, his hand shot out. Not to hit, not yet. To grab. Fingers like a vice clamping around Sarah's upper arm exactly where the bruises already lived in layers. Purple, yellow, green. A timeline of violence written in subcutaneous hemorrhaging. Lily moved. 52 pounds, 4'1", wearing her dead father's jacket that still carried the faint smell of sand and gun oil from a war that had ended before she was born. She stepped between her mother and Derek and tilted her head back to look up at a man more than twice her size. Let go of my mom. The words emerged without tremor, clear as glass, sharp as a blade. The diner went silent. Even the kitchen noise stopped. Every eye in the place found them. 10 witnesses, maybe 15. All of them suddenly very interested in their coffee cups and half-eaten burgers and the particular patterns in the Formica tabletops. Derek's eyes dropped to Lily, registered her existence, dismissed her relevance in the same heartbeat. Get out of my way, kid. No, that single syllable hung in the air between them. Derek's free hand rose. Everyone saw it. Everyone knew what came next. And everyone looked away because getting involved in other people's problems was a good way to become a problem yourself. Jack Morrison moved. 62 years old. Scarred. Gray beard that hadn't been trimmed in 3 weeks. Carrying 30 years of guilt and the muscle memory of a man who'd fought in jungles before Derek Mason's father was born. His hand caught Derek's wrist mid-swing. Not gentle. The grip of someone who'd performed combat medicine on 19-year-olds bleeding out from wounds that should have killed them. Steady, certain, unbreakable. She said no. Time to leave. Derek's head whipped around. Saw old biker. Hell's Angels vest with patches that told stories in a language most civilians couldn't read. Scar like war paint. Eyes that had looked at death and hadn't blinked and wouldn't start now. This is none of your business, old man. Jack's grip tightened. Bone ground against bone through Derek's skin. The younger man's face went pale. It is now. Derek yanked his arm free and stumbled backward. The diner's fluorescent lights caught his face full on, and everyone saw the calculation happen. Old biker. Probably armed. Public place. Wrong fight. Wrong time. Not enough whiskey in his system yet to override survival instinct. This isn't over. The words spat out like venom, directed at Sarah, at Lily, at Jack, at the universe that had stopped letting him control everything. He left. The truck roared. Gravel spattered against the diner's windows like hail. Silence held for 3 heartbeats. 4. Then Lily looked up at Jack, and her voice emerged small but steady. Thank you. Most people just watch. Jack's throat closed. because Linda had said almost exactly that once, age 6. When he'd stopped a bully at her school from taking her lunch money. Linda's voice, Linda's cadence, Linda's too old understanding that the world was full of people who saw wrong and did nothing. You're safe now. No. Lily said it with the certainty of a child who'd earned wisdom through pain. He'll come back. They always come back. The past doesn't die. It waits. And Jack Morrison, 62-year-old Marine Hells Angels president, man who'd survived Vietnam and 30 years of grief that should have killed him, felt his world tilt sideways. Because those were his words. The exact phrase he'd said to Linda's mother the night his daughter vanished. The past doesn't die. It waits. A mantra he'd lived by for 3 decades. How could this child possibly know? Jack knelt. Got to Lily's eye level. His knees protested with a particular grinding sensation of joints that had absorbed too many motorcycle crashes and jungle marches and 62 years of refusing to quit. Close enough now to see details his 3-hour surveillance had missed. The way she protected her left side when she moved. Cracked ribs, maybe. The faded bruises on her neck barely hidden by her jacket collar. Hands, choking. The fear she refused to show blazing in her eyes like a forge. You're brave. Lily's hand moved to touch the red bandana on his wrist. Her fingers whisper light against the fabric. Brave is just scared that decided to move anyway. The words hit Jack like a gut punch, because that was exactly how Tommy Carter had defined courage. His best friend from Vietnam. The man who'd saved his life in Hugh City. The man who'd taught him that fear and courage weren't opposites, but partners in the dance every warrior learned. What's this? Lily's finger traced the bandana's edge. Jack's hand moved to cover it. Instinct. Protection. But she'd already registered the way his entire body had tensed. It belonged to someone. Someone I couldn't save. Past tense belonged, yeah. I'm sorry your someone is past tense. My dad's past tense too. She touched the name tape on her jacket. Carter. Iraq. 2010. IED. I don't remember him. Just stories Mom tells me when she thinks I'm asleep. Sarah was crying now. Silent tears of relief and exhaustion, and the particular despair of a woman who'd given up hope so long ago, she'd forgotten what it felt like when someone actually helped. Jack stood, his knees cracked. Everything hurt. Everything always hurt. You didn't make it to 62 as a combat veteran and motorcycle club president without collecting injuries like other people collected stamps. Ma'am, I'm Jack Morrison. I run a... He stopped. Most people heard Hell's Angels and saw crime documentaries, saw violence, saw the worst assumptions cable television could manufacture, saw everything except what they actually were. I can help if you want help. Sarah looked at him, at the scar, at the vest, at the red bandana, at the man who'd stepped up when 15 other people had found reasons to stay seated. I can't pay you, didn't ask you to. Derek will come for me. Let him, he'll hurt you. Jack almost smiled. Ma'am, I'm a 62-year-old Vietnam vet with more scars than sense. I've been hurt by professionals. Derek Mason's an amateur. Frank appeared with 2 cups of hot chocolate in the particular expression of a man delivering news he wished he didn't have. I called Doc Washington. He can look at Sarah. Brotherhood covers medical. Sarah's face crumpled. I don't need looking at. I need... Her voice broke, shattered into pieces she couldn't quite gather back together. I need $75,000 in 3 months I don't have. Lily's hand found her mother's. The child's voice emerged flat, the tone of someone who'd been told too many impossible things and learned to carry them anyway. Mom has cancer, pancreatic, stage 3. Surgery costs $75,000. Insurance won't cover experimental procedures. Doctor says without surgery she has 3 months. With surgery, maybe 5 years. The math was cruel, simple, impossibly brutal in its clarity. Jack looked at Frank. Frank looked at Jack. An entire conversation happened in the silence between them. The kind men who'd known each other for 30 years could conduct without words. The kind that said everything that mattered and nothing that didn't. How much you got saved? Sarah's voice emerged barely above a whisper. $800. And Derek Frank's question carried 43 years of diner wisdom. Reading situations, understanding the topology of violence and desperation and the particular way money made people into monsters. Sarah's face drained to the color of old snow. Derek owes money, bad money, casino debt to people who she couldn't finish, didn't need to. Lily finished for her. 200,000 to people who kill you if you don't pay. He needs mom's life insurance, 600,000 if she dies, enough to pay his debt and have money left over. He needs her dead before the divorce papers get signed. 8 years old. Understanding murder. Explaining insurance fraud with the clinical detachment of someone who'd learned to separate emotion from survival. Jack's fists clenched. The bandana burned against his wrist like a brand heated in fire. He's not killing anybody. Frank called the Brotherhood. Emergency meeting. Tonight. Jack, tonight. The word dropped between them with the weight of an order. Frank nodded once, pulled out his phone, started making calls to men who'd drop everything and ride through weather like this because one of their own said the word. Lily pulled a folded paper from her jacket pocket, handed it to Jack, her voice steady despite everything. I drew this, in case someone finally listened. Jack unfolded it. Pencil sketch. Child's hand but adult detail, revealing an intelligence that should have been playing with dolls instead of documenting abuse. A map, their house layout, security cameras marked with precise locations. Derek's usual positions noted in small, neat handwriting. Weapons locations, a Glock 19 in the bedroom, a hunting rifle in the garage, a knife collection in the study, escape routes marked with arrows, all of it labeled in the careful script of an 8-year-old who'd taught herself tactical planning. At the bottom a note, he will kill her. Help us. Lily Carter, age 8, October 15, 2024. How long you been planning this? 2 years. Since I got smart enough to understand what I was seeing. Jack looked closer. In the corner of the map, a symbol. Military insignia. Marines, specific unit, Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, the same unit Jack had served in. Vietnam, 1972 to 74. Where did you see this symbol? My dad's footlocker. It's the only thing Mom kept. I looked inside last year. There were letters, all addressed to Lily, pulled out a photograph, creased from being folded and unfolded 1,000 times. The edges worn soft with handling. Jack's hands went numb. The world narrowed to that single image. 2 Marines, Vietnam, 1973. One was Jack Morrison, age 20 with no scar yet and hair so black it looked like ink. The other was a man Jack hadn't thought about in months because thinking hurt too much. Sergeant Thomas Carter, my dad. He wrote about you, said you saved his life in Hugh, said if anything ever happened to him, if his family ever needed help, to find Jack Reaper Morrison. Hell's Angels, Riverside chapter. The photograph trembled in Jack's grip. Time collapsed. 39 years vanished in a heartbeat. You knew my dad. Jack sat heavily in the booth. The vinyl squeaked, the diner spun, seconds stretched into hours. Tommy Carter. Your father was Tommy Carter. You knew him. The question carried such desperate hope, such raw need to know the father she'd never met. Jack's voice emerged rough as gravel. Knew him, kid. He saved my life. Hugh City, February 1973. I took shrapnel. He touched his scar. This. Went down. Tommy dragged me 2 clicks through enemy territory, took a bullet in his shoulder doing it. If not for your dad, I'd be a name on a wall in D.C. instead of sitting here. Lily climbed into the booth beside him, small body next to his bulk. She smelled like childhood, hot chocolate and fear, and the particular scent of resilience that couldn't be manufactured or taught. Mom said he never talked about the war, but he wrote letters, lots of them. He said you were the bravest medic he ever saw, said you saved 12 men in one battle, said you ran into enemy fire 36 times to drag wounded Marines, said I couldn't save them all. Jack's hand found the red bandana, wrapped around it. Held on like a drowning man clutching driftwood. Some debts you can never repay. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then her voice emerged soft but certain. Is that why you're helping us? Because of my dad. Jack looked at her. Really looked. Saw Tommy's eyes, Tommy's stubborn jaw, Tommy's courage that bordered on suicidal stupidity but somehow kept you alive when nothing else should have. I'm helping you because Tommy Carter spent 6 months teaching me that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway. Your dad lived that philosophy, died living it, and I'll be damned if I let his daughter and granddaughter suffer when I can stop it. Lily absorbed this, processing information the way 8-year-olds shouldn't have to. My dad used to say, family isn't blood, it's who shows up. He taught me that too. So are you family now? Jack's throat tightened. If you'll have me. The sound started low. So low you felt it in your chest before your ears registered anything. A vibration in the floorboards, a hum in the windows, a promise of thunder rolling in from every direction at once. Lily's eyes widened. What is that? Jack checked his watch. 10:47. That's your dad's family arriving. 1 motorcycle. 2, 5, 10, 20. They materialized from the darkness like something summoned by ancient ritual. Highway 9, Route 47. The back roads only locals knew existed. Hell's Angels Riverside chapter responding to Frank's calls, plus 3 other chapters Jack had contacted, plus independents who rode with them sometimes, plus men who'd served with Tommy Carter in Iraq and Afghanistan and remembered debts that transcended time. By the time the rumble stopped, 47 motorcycles lined Romano's diner parking lot in perfect formation. 47 riders, ages 52 to 71. Combined military service, 283 years. Combined scars beyond counting. Combined rage at men who hurt women and children sufficient to level mountains. Frank Romano stood at the entrance watching his diner transform into a staging ground. At 67, he'd witnessed enough to know some nights changed everything. Some nights you couldn't go back. Some nights you had to choose who you were going to be for the rest of your life. The brothers filed in, water dripping from leather, boots heavy on linoleum. Jack stood, introduced them one by one to Lily with the formality of presenting soldiers to a commanding officer. Lily Carter, daughter of Sergeant Thomas Carter, Echo Company. I present your father's family. Steele stepped forward first. Vice President, age 67, with a gray beard down to his chest and eyes that had seen too much but refused to look away. He shook Lily's hand like she was an adult. Equal, worthy of respect. Your father saved my nephew. Afghanistan, 2007. Tommy was training cadre. My nephew wrote me that man's a born protector. Doc Washington knelt, opened his medical bag, 60 years old with hands steady enough to perform surgery in a combat zone. May I check your mom? Sweetheart Chains pulled out a photograph. 58 with scars running down both arms from a motorcycle crash that should have killed him. Your dad and me, Fort Benning, 2006. He taught me to ride. Said every man needs 2 families. The one he's born into and the one he chooses. Maggie Sullivan approached last among the initial introductions. 65 years old, the only woman in the room old enough to remember Vietnam protests. Mechanic's hands with grease permanently embedded in the lines of her palms. She touched Lily's shoulder with surprising gentleness. Sugar, I run a shelter. Your mama and you are coming with me tonight. Nobody's touching you there. Then came Bear, Lucas Bear Johnson, 64 years old, 6'6", 280 pounds. Hands like meat hooks. A scar running from his left temple to his jaw, courtesy of an IED in Fallujah. Face that made children cry in grocery stores. He approached Lily. She didn't run, didn't even flinch. Bear stopped 3 feet away. Then slowly, with the grace of a man who'd learned to make himself less frightening, he lowered himself to one knee, eye level with an 8-year-old who barely came up to his chest when he was standing. Miss Lily, his voice rumbled like distant thunder, like mountains settling. Your daddy once told me the measure of a man is how he treats people who can do nothing for him. You're a little girl who needs help, so we're going to help you. Not because we want something, because it's right. You understand? Lily nodded. Good. Now you like hot chocolate. Yes, sir. Well, I make the best hot chocolate in 3 counties. Let me show you how it's done. And Lily Carter, 8 years old survivor of violence, carrier of impossible burdens, smiled for the first time in months. The hardened bikers melted, every single one. They gathered in the diner's back room, Jack at the head of the table, Steele to his right, Chains to his left, the rest arranged by rank and seniority. Lily's tactical map spread before them like military intelligence. Situation. Jack's voice dropped into the tone Marines use for briefings. Clinical, precise, emotional content buried beneath layers of professionalism. Sarah Carter, terminal pancreatic cancer, 3 months without surgery, 5 years with, surgery costs $75,000. Insurance won't cover experimental procedures. Daughter Lily, age 8. Husband Derek Mason, 38, firefighter, violent alcoholic. Derek owes casino debt, $200,000 to organized crime. Deadline 48 hours. Sarah's life insurance, $600,000. Derek needs her dead before divorce finalizes. Steele leaned forward. So this is murder for profit, domestic violence escalating to homicide. Yes. Doc Washington spoke up. His voice carried the weight of 40 years practicing medicine in places where supplies ran short and patients ran shorter. I examined Sarah while you were talking. Cancer's real, advanced, surgery's urgent. But there's another problem. He paused. Let the silence build weight. She's been poisoned. Small doses over weeks, maybe months. Arsenic, accelerating the cancer's progression, making her weaker. Derek's been poisoning his wife. The room went silent. The kind of silence that comes right before violence erupts. Cold, hard, absolute. Chain spoke first. Are we killing him? Jack's voice cut through the tension like a blade. We're better than that. We document everything. We save Sarah and Lily. We make sure Derek goes away for 30 years minimum. Legal, clean, no blood on our hands unless he forces it. And the surgery money, Maggie's question, practical. Focused on solutions, not revenge. Frank Romano stood. I'm in for $10,000. Diner savings. Steele didn't hesitate. Chapter fund $15,000. Doc straightened. I can do the surgery pro bono if we can get her into Sacred Heart. But hospital cost medication recovery, we're still short $40,000. Bear pulled out his phone. I'll call in favors. Veterans groups. Marine Corps Association. Tommy Carter's old unit. We've got... He checked his watch. 60 hours before the surgery window closes. We can raise $40,000 in 60 hours. Make it happen. Jack's order, simple, direct, no room for failure. The door opened. A woman entered. Asian American, early 40s, with a detective's badge on her belt and exhaustion carved into the lines around her eyes. Detective Laura Chen. I've been investigating Derek Mason for 3 months. She laid out photographs on the table. 4 women, different ages, races, backgrounds. Same bruises, same terror in their eyes. Same pattern of injuries that told stories their mouths had been too afraid to speak. 4 previous domestic violence complaints. All dropped, and all victims recanted, all terrified. I can't arrest him without evidence that'll stick. His firefighter buddies cover for him. Judges give him breaks because he's a local hero. Systems failed these women. But if you're planning what I think you're planning, we're not planning anything illegal. Jack's voice careful, measured, walking the line between truth and necessity. Laura smiled, tired, knowing, of course not. But if you were, and if you happened to obtain evidence of ongoing domestic violence, assault, poisoning, conspiracy to commit murder, I'd be very interested in seeing that evidence. Hypothetically. Hypothetically. One more thing. Laura pulled out a file, set it on the table. Derek's not just desperate about mob debt. 3 weeks ago, his crew responded to a house fire. 2 children trapped inside. Derek froze. Complete panic attack. His crew saved the kids. But Derek's been on administrative leave since. PTSD evaluation pending. He's losing everything. Reputation, job, money, wife. Cornered animals are most dangerous. Noted. Laura stood to leave. At the door, she paused, turned back. Sergeant Thomas Carter. I knew him different way. He testified in a case I worked, sex trafficking ring. He didn't have to, could have stayed silent, but he said brotherhood means nobody gets left behind. Not your unit, not strangers, nobody. She left. The door closed. The room absorbed what she'd given them, not just information, permission. The system's acknowledgement that sometimes justice required working outside official channels. The door burst open again. A man stumbled in. Mid-30s, firefighter jacket, wild eyes, phone clutched in shaking hands. I need to talk to Jack Morrison. Jack stood. I'm Morrison. Craig Wheeler. I'm, I was Derek's friend, firefighter. Craig looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. Red-rimmed eyes, stubble, the particular desperation of a man who'd realized he'd been complicit in something unforgivable. Derek called me 2 hours ago. He's planning something tonight. He's got Bobby Martinez and Jake Sullivan with him. They're armed, they're drunk, and they're coming for Sarah. When midnight, they know she's here. Derek saw the motorcycles. He thinks he can overwhelm you with numbers. Hit fast. Grab Sarah and Lily. He's wrong, right? Tell me he's wrong. Jack checked his watch. 11:02. 58 minutes. He's wrong. The words emerged cold as winter. But Craig, why are you here? Derek's your friend. Craig pulled out his phone, played a recording. Derek's voice slurred with alcohol and rage and desperation. After we get Sarah, we kill the old biker. Make it look like self-defense. Then Sarah and Lily disappear. Permanently. Canyons deep enough, nobody finds bodies. The recording continued. Murder conspiracy, detailed planning, in Derek's voice, recorded by his best friend. Craig's hand shook. I have a daughter, Emma. She's 5. Last night she asked me, Daddy, is Mr. Derek a bad man? And I lied, said no. But she knew. Children always know. He looked at Lily sitting at the counter with Bear learning to make hot chocolate. I'm sorry, I should have helped sooner. Respect isn't given. It's earned. I haven't earned any, but maybe I can start. Jack took the phone. You wearing a wire number? You willing to? Craig met his eyes. Whatever you need. The Brotherhood moved with military precision. Ghost and smoke exterior surveillance, establishing perimeter security. Bear and iron front door visible deterrent. Doc and Maggie with Sarah and Lily preparing to evacuate if necessary. Steel and chains, rooftop positions with clear sightlines. Frank kitchen, securing back exit. Jack's center position, drawing fire if it came to that. Laura Chen called back. State police are 15 minutes out if you need them, but they can't respond without provocation. We'll give them provocation. 11:47. Derek's truck appeared at the far end of the parking lot. 2 more trucks behind it. 9 men total visible in the headlights. Jack stepped outside alone. Stood in the diner's light. Old man, gray beard, scar, Hell's Angels vest. Waiting. Derek got out slowly, saw Jack, smiled with all the warmth of a shark. Old man, last chance. Give me my wife and kid. Walk away. No. Then you die tonight. Maybe. Jack touched his red bandana. But Derek, I've died before. Turns out I'm pretty good at it. Derek and his crew advanced. 40 feet, 30, 20. Then the lights hit. Every motorcycle's headlight, all 47, flooded the parking lot like daylight. And standing in front of each bike, a brother, a sister. 47 people, armed, ready, united. Derek stopped. Jack spoke loud enough to carry. Derek Mason, you have 2 choices. Walk away now, or find out what happens when you threaten a Marine's family. Derek's hand moved toward his gun, and Lily Carter's voice cut through the night, small but fearless. Leave my mom alone. Everyone turned. Lily stood in the doorway, 8 years old, Marine's jacket, holding Craig's phone. I've been recording everything. Every word, every threat, all of it. Derek's face went white. You little, a gunshot cracked the night. Not from Derek. From Bobby Martinez. Panicked. Wild. Aimed at Jack. The bullet hit Jack's left shoulder at 11:47 p.m. Not center mass, not immediately fatal, but at 62 years old with scar tissue from 50-year-old shrapnel and cardiovascular disease that came from decades of cigarettes and bad coffee, no bullet was minor. The 9mm round punched through deltoid muscle, clipped the subclavian artery, exited below his collarbone carrying fragments of bone and flesh that scattered across wet asphalt like dropped change. Combat trainings kicked in before conscious thought. Even as he fell, Jack's right hand found the Sig Sauer holstered at his hip. Drew, acquired target. 3 controlled shots into Bobby Martinez's truck engine block. Center mass on the vehicle, not the man, neutralizing threat without killing. The way drill instructors at Camp Pendleton had taught him in 1972 When Vietnam still had 2 years left to chew up American boys and spit out broken men, the truck's engine seized, oil spraying, Bobby screaming, but unhurt, just scared, just realizing what happened when you fired drunk at a Marine Corps combat veteran who'd spent 2 tours keeping 19-year-olds alive under enemy fire. Jack hit the ground hard. Parking lot asphalt cold and wet under his back. Rain mixing with blood pooling beneath him. Pain arriving in waves. First shock, then fire. Then something worse than fire. The particular agony of arterial bleeding when your body realizes it's losing pressure fast. 47 motorcycles roared to life as one organism. Headlights blazing. Engines harmonizing into thunder that shook Romano's diner windows. The brotherhood moving with tactical precision that came from decades riding together. Protecting each other. Covering flanks, Doc Washington reached Jack first. Marcus Washington, age 60, former Army medic who'd done 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Hands that had held pressure on 73 soldiers and saved 61 of them, now pressed against Jack's shoulder. Assessing damage with fingertips that remembered anatomy from muscle memory older than some of the prospects watching. Through and through. Arterial nick. You're losing blood fast, brother. Jack's vision graying at edges. Not his first time bleeding out. Vietnam had taught him what dying felt like. The cold creeping inward. The sounds fading. The particular peace that came when your body started shutting down to preserve the brain for a few final minutes. Stay with me, Reaper. Doc's voice steady, calm. The voice that had talked dozens of dying men back from the edge through sheer force of will and medical competence. I need pressure here. Steel, get me the trauma kit from my bike. Chains, call 911. Tell them GSW arterial bleed. We need a bus now. Lily appeared in Jack's fading vision. 8 years old in oversized Marine's jacket. Tommy Carter's jacket. Tommy's granddaughter. Kneeling beside him on wet asphalt. Tears streaming down face that hadn't cried in years because crying made Derek hit harder. You took a bullet for me. Jack's voice weak. Not the first time, kid. Won't be the last. Well, because someone should have taken one for Linda. Because Tommy took one for me and Hugh. Because debts get paid. Because that's what you do when you give a damn. The world telescoped. Sounds distant. Sirens approaching. Derek Mason screaming profanity from the back of a patrol car. Craig Wheeler sobbing. Bobby Martinez being tackled by Bear Johnson, who at 6'6" and 280 pounds could neutralize a threat without breaking a sweat. Jack's hand found the red bandana at his wrist. Linda's blood still faintly visible after 29 years. His fingers closed around it, anchored to consciousness. Reminder of why he'd stepped in front of that bullet. Stay awake, brother. Doc applying Israeli bandage. Using technique learned in Fallujah when IED shrapnel had turned infantry soldiers into anatomy lessons. You don't get to die tonight. Lily needs you. Sarah needs you. The Brotherhood needs you. Don't need nothing. Jack's voice fading. Just need to know they're safe. They're safe. Derek's contained. Police have him. You did your job. Now let me do mine. Ambulance arrived. Paramedics taking over. Loading Jack onto gurney. Starting IV lines. Typo negative because he'd bled enough they couldn't wait for crossmatch. Whole blood pumping into veins trying desperately to replace what he'd lost on Romano's parking lot. Lily tried to climb into ambulance. Maggie Sullivan pulled her back gently. 70 years old and strong as the steel she'd been welding since 1975. Running the shelter where broken women went to hide. Where Sarah and Lily would be safe tonight. He'll be okay, sweetheart. He's survived worse. How do you know? Because Jack Morrison's too stubborn to die. And because your father's watching over him. Tommy Carter wouldn't let Jack go, not after Jack saved his life in Vietnam. The ambulance doors closed, siren wailing, lights disappearing into Montana night. Lily stood in parking lot watching taillights fade. Brotherhood surrounding her. 47 bikers in leather and patches creating a circle of protection around an 8-year-old girl who just watched a stranger take a bullet meant for her mother. Steel Romano put his hand on Lily's shoulder. 67 years old. Vice president of the chapter. Owner of the diner where this had started. His voice gravelly from 40 years of cigarettes and shouting over motorcycle engines. Your dad Tommy saved Jack's life in 1973. Dragged him 300 meters under enemy fire. Held pressure on a shrapnel wound until medevac arrived. Jack would have bled out without Tommy. So tonight, Jack paid that debt forward, saved Tommy's granddaughter. That's how honor works. Debts get paid, even 50 years later. Detective Laura Chen arrived in unmarked Crown Victoria, 38 years old, Asian-American woman in a department that was 90% white men over 50. She'd been investigating Derek Mason for 6 months. 4 previous victims, all recanted under pressure. But this time she had witnesses, video, recording, evidence that couldn't be intimidated or bought off. She approached the patrol car holding Derek, watched him for a long moment, face impassive. Then she opened the door. "Derek Mason, you're under arrest for attempted murder of Jack Morrison, assault with a deadly weapon, conspiracy to commit murder, domestic violence, stalking, witness intimidation. You have the right to remain silent." Derek spat at her, missed, screamed about illegal arrests and false charges, and his lawyer was going to destroy everyone involved. Laura didn't react, just closed the door. Let him scream. She'd heard it before. The rage of men who believed the system existed to protect them, not their victims. She found Lily with the Brotherhood, knelt to eye level. "You're Lily Carter." "Yes, ma'am. I need you to tell me what happened tonight, everything. Can you do that?" Lily nodded, pulled the tactical map from her jacket pocket, the one she'd been drawing for 2 years. House layout, weapons locations, escape routes. Evidence of systematic planning that would devastate any defense attorney's claim this was a one-time incident. "I documented everything for 2 years. I knew someday someone would ask, so I wrote it down." Laura took the map, stared at it. Military precision from an 8-year-old child, color-coded threat levels, timestamps, detailed notes about Derek's patterns and Sarah's injuries in the particular days when violence was most likely. "You did this yourself," my dad taught me. Before he died, he said, "If you're in danger, document everything. Write it down, take pictures, make maps, because someday you'll need evidence, and scared people don't think clearly. So document while you can still think." Laura looked at Maggie, then at Steele, then at the 47 bikers standing in the rain protecting a child they'd met 2 hours ago. "She's not going back to that house." "No, ma'am." Maggie's voice carrying the particular authority of a woman who'd been saving others for 40 years. "She's staying at my shelter, her and her mom, as long as they need." "Good. I'll need statements from everyone, but that can wait until morning." Laura stood, looked at the patrol car holding Derek. "Get him processed, full workup. I want blood alcohol, drug screen, everything. And someone find Bobby Martinez and Jake Chen. Their accessories." Sarah Carter was loaded into a second ambulance. Not bleeding, not critical, but collapsing from stress and fear and 5 years of accumulated trauma, finally overwhelming her body now that immediate danger had passed. Lily rode with her, holding her mother's hand, both of them shaking, both alive, both free for the first time in half a decade. The ambulance carrying Jack reached Sacred Heart Hospital at 12:03 a.m. Trauma team waiting, type O negative running wide open. Blood pressure 70/40 and dropping. Surgeon on call was Dr. Patricia Reeves, 58, former Navy, 20 years patching up sailors and Marines who'd done stupid things in stupid places. She took one look at Jack's wound and knew this was going to be complicated. "Get him to OR2. Call for backup. I want vascular on standby. This is going to be a long night." They wheeled Jack into surgery at 12:17 a.m. Doc Washington scrubbed in without asking permission. He'd trained as a paramedic, not a surgeon, but Dr. Reeves knew better than to refuse an extra pair of hands, especially hands that belonged to someone who'd done more combat medicine than most surgeons would see in a lifetime. The surgery should have been routine. In and out, clean the wound, repair the artery, close up. 4 hours maximum. But Jack Morrison was 62 years old with scar tissue from shrapnel wounds in 1973, with cardiovascular disease, with lungs that had breathed Agent Orange and burned pit smoke, with a body that had been breaking down slowly for decades and was now deciding maybe it was done fighting. Hour 3, the blood pressure crashed. 70/30, 50/20, undetectable. He's coding. Dr. Reeves' hands moving fast, controlled. The particular calm of a surgeon who'd lost patients before and refused to lose another one tonight. Start compressions. Get me EPI. Doc Washington's hands on Jack's chest. Pushing, counting, 30 compressions. 2 breaths, 30 compressions. The rhythm burned into muscle memory from training that never quite left you, no matter how many years had passed. Clear. Paddles. Shock. Jack's body arcing off the table. Monitor flatline extending. Again. Clear. Shock. Nothing. Come on, brother. Doc's voice barely audible. You don't get to quit. Lily needs you. Sarah needs you. Your daughter needs you to finish what you started. Third shock. The monitor hiccuped, blipped, found rhythm. Sinus tach at 120 but steady. Blood pressure climbing. 60 over 30, 70 over 40. Stabilizing. Dr. Reeves exhaled. That was too close. He's a fighter. Doc's hand steady but voice shaking slightly. Always has been. They finished the surgery at 4:47 a.m. 5 hours total. Artery repaired. Bone fragments removed. Wound irrigated and closed. Jack Morrison transferred to ICU, intubated and sedated. Alive but critical. Next 24 hours would determine if the damage was permanent. While Jack fought for his life in surgery 30 miles away, Derek Mason stood before Judge Richard Morrison at arraignment. No relation to Jack despite the shared name. Judge Morrison was 63. White. Former prosecutor. Known for being tough on crime except when crime involved people he knew personally. The prosecutor was Amanda Torres. 31. Latina. Overworked and underpaid in a county that couldn't afford enough attorneys to handle the caseload. She stood before the judge with Derek's jacket file that included 4 previous domestic violence complaints. All dismissed. All recanted by victims, too scarce to follow through. Your Honor, the state requests remand without bail. Mr. Mason attempted to murder Jack Morrison. Shot by his associate Bobby Martinez on Mr. Mason's orders. We have video. We have audio recording. We have witness testimony. The defendant is an extreme flight risk and danger to the community. Judge Morrison reviewed the file, took his time, made a show of reading carefully. Then he looked up, made eye contact with Derek, barely perceptible nod. Bail is set at $10,000 cash. Defendant will surrender passport and submit to GPS monitoring. Next, Amanda Torres froze. 10,000, Your Honor. He tried to commit murder, alleged murder. Defendant has strong community ties. 15 years with Riverside Fire Department. No prior convictions. I see no reason to deny bail. Next case. Derek posted bail at 7:23 a.m. His cousin Marcus fronting the money from a bail bondsman who didn't ask questions. The GPS monitor went on his ankle. Easily removable if you knew what you were doing, and Derek had friends in the sheriff's department who'd taught him exactly what to do. He walked out of Dawson County Jail into morning sunlight, free, furious, already planning his next move. Bobby Martinez and Jake Chen had fled town. Cowards. But Craig Wheeler was still around, and Craig had access to the hospital, to Sarah, to that biker who'd interfered. Derek pulled out the burner phone he'd stashed in his truck before the arrest, the one Bobby had grabbed during the confusion and handed off to Marcus during processing. Police had taken Derek's iPhone, but they didn't know about the backup. The phone with one number pre-programmed. The number Derek had been told to call if he ever needed help with something that required discretion. He dialed. It rang twice. Yeah, it's Derek Mason. I need to call in that favor. What kind of favor, Tim? The permanent kind. The voice paused. Location, Sacred Heart Hospital. 3rd floor. Sarah Carter and Jack Morrison. I need them gone. When soon as possible. Tonight, if you can manage it, I'll send someone. But this is the last favor. After this, you're on your own. That's all I need. Derek ended the call, removed the SIM card, crushed it under his boot, tossed the phone in a dumpster. Then he drove to his house. Showered, changed clothes, made coffee, acted like a man who had nothing to worry about. Like a man who believed the system would protect him the way it always had. At Sacred Heart Hospital, Carol Morrison sat beside her ex-husband's ICU bed. She'd been on the 4th floor visiting her mother when she heard about Jack's surgery. 20 years since their divorce. 20 years of separate lives built on the rubble of a marriage destroyed by Linda's abduction. by grief that had consumed them both differently. Jack diving into the brotherhood, Carol running 3,000 miles to California to escape memories that haunted every corner of Montana. But she'd come back, her mother dying of lung cancer. And Carol finally ready to face the ghost she'd been running from for 2 decades. She'd been in Riverside for 3 months, hadn't contacted Jack, didn't know what to say. How do you apologize for blaming someone for something neither of you could have prevented? Now she sat beside his bed watching machines breathe for him, watching monitors track heartbeat and blood pressure and oxygen saturation. Numbers that meant he was alive, but barely. Numbers that could change any second. The door opened. Lily Carter stepped in, 8 years old, exhausted, wearing the red bandana Jack had given her in the parking lot. The bandana with Linda's blood that Carol recognized immediately. The bandana she'd seen Jack touch obsessively for 29 years, now wrapped around a child's wrist. Lily saw Carol, froze. Didn't know who this woman was, but something about her eyes looked familiar. Looked like the photos of Linda that Jack had shown her. The same blue-gray, the same shape. Carol stood. I'm Carol, Jack's ex-wife. Lily, Jack saved my mom. And me. I know, Laura told me. Carol's voice gentle. Careful. The way you spoke to traumatized children when you'd spent years working with foster kids. That's who Jack is. He saves people. Even when it costs him everything. Is he going to be okay? I don't know. The doctors say the next 24 hours are critical. His heart stopped during surgery. They got it started again, but there might be damage. We won't know until he wakes up, if he wakes up. When, Carol's voice firm, when he wakes up, Jack Morrison doesn't quit. Trust me, I was married to him for 20 years. Stubborn is his defining characteristic. Lily sat in the chair opposite Carol. They watched Jack together. Two people connected by a man who'd saved one of them and married the other. Connected by Linda's memory, by loss and grief, and the particular bond that forms when you've both loved someone difficult. Why'd you divorce him? Carol took a long time answering. Finally, because I blamed him for Linda. It wasn't fair. It wasn't his fault. But I needed someone to blame, and he was there. So I left. Spent 20 years in California trying to forget. But you can't forget your own child. Can't forget the best years of your life. Can't run far enough to escape your own heart. Do you still love him? I never stopped. I just didn't know how to live with the pain. But pain's easier to carry when you're not alone. I see that now. 20 years too late, maybe. But I see it. The hours dragged. Jack remained unconscious. Machines beeping their steady rhythm. Nurses checking vitals every hour. Dr. Reeves stopping by at noon with guarded optimism. He's stable. That's good. Now we wait. While Jack slept, fundraising for Sarah's surgery accelerated. Maggie Sullivan organized the Brotherhood. Steele Romano used his diner as headquarters. Chains Rodriguez set up crowdfunding page. Bishop Stone contacted every veterans organization within 500 miles. Within 24 hours, they'd raised $32,000. Another $43,000 pledged. The goal was $75,000 for surgery, plus recovery costs, plus housing, plus therapy for Lily. The community responded. People who'd feared the Hells Angels for decades now seeing them differently. Not criminals, not outlaws, guardians, protectors, men and women who'd said yes when everyone else looked away. The donations poured in. $20 from a waitress, $500 from the mayor, $1,000 from the fire department where Derek had worked. Blood money, maybe. Guilt money, definitely. But money that would save Sarah's life. Craig Wheeler showed up at Romano's diner at 3 p.m. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, hadn't stopped shaking since watching Bobby shoot Jack, since watching his best friend Derek get arrested for attempted murder, since realizing he'd been complicit through silence. That by saying to nothing, he'd been saying everything. Steele met him at the door, 6'1", 240 pounds. Vietnam veteran with tattoos that told stories in ink about battles fought and brothers lost. He looked at Craig for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. Coffee's hot. Have a seat. Craig sat at table 9, the table where Lily had documented 2 years of abuse and careful sketches, where Jack had watched for 3 hours before intervening, where everything had started 5 hours ago. I should have said something sooner. Steele poured 2 cups of coffee, sat across from Craig. Yeah, you should have. I was scared. Derek's my friend. Was my friend. I don't know anymore. I saw him hit Sarah once, 2 years ago. I told myself it was one time, that it wouldn't happen again, that it wasn't my business. That's what everyone tells themselves. Steele's voice not unkind, not forgiving either, just factual, that it's not their business, that they don't want to get involved. That maybe the woman's exaggerating. That's how men like Derek keep getting away with it, because good men stay silent. I want to help. Whatever you need, I'll testify, I'll give statements, I'll do anything. Steele studied him, reading sincerity, reading desperation, reading the particular guilt of a man who'd watched evil happen and done nothing. You recorded him, last night, talking about killing Jack and Sarah and Lily. That true, Craig nodded, pulled out his phone, played the recording. Derek's voice clear, unmistakable. Planning murder. Detailing exactly how they do it. Evidence that would destroy any defense attorney's strategy. Laura Chen needs to hear this. I know. I'll call her. But first I need you to understand something. I'm not a good person. I stood by and watched. But I'm trying to be better. Trying to do the right thing even though it's 2 years too late. Right thing's never too late. Steele stood, offered his hand. Craig took it. The handshake firm. Meaningful. The beginning of redemption, maybe. Or at least the attempt. At 2:17 p.m., a man entered Sacred Heart Hospital. His name was Vincent Cross, former Marine, Fallujah veteran, now working private security for the Russo family out of Seattle. He'd served with Tommy Carter in 2005, owed him his life, and he'd just received orders from his employer to eliminate Tommy Carter's family. Orders that changed the moment he'd looked up Tommy Carter and realized who he was being sent to kill. Vincent dressed in business casual, visitor badge from reception desk, flowers in his hand, walking with purpose but not rushing, not drawing attention, moving through hospital like he belonged, like hundreds of other visitors seeing sick relatives. No weapons visible, no threat apparent. He found the ICU, signed in his family, gave a fake name. The nurse barely looked at him, overworked, understaffed, trusting that anyone who bothered to sign in probably belonged. Jack Morrison was in room 304, still unconscious, still intubated. Carol asleep in the chair beside his bed, Lily on the small couch, both exhausted, both unaware. Vincent stood in the doorway, looked at Jack, saw the resemblance to the photos Tommy had shown him, the grizzled Marine who'd mentored Tommy, who'd saved his life in Vietnam, who'd taught him what honor meant. He looked at the machines keeping Jack alive, at the woman and child sleeping beside him, at the red bandana wrapped around Lily's wrist, at the Marine's jacket too big for her small frame, at the Echo Company patch Tommy had worn. Vincent stepped back into the hallway, made a phone call. Yeah, it's Cross. I'm at the hospital. And I'm not doing it. Say again, the target is Tommy Carter's family. Sergeant Thomas Carter. Echo Company. 2nd Battalion. Fallujah 2005. The man who saved my life. I'm not killing his family. Silence on the other end. Then Carter's dead. His daughter and granddaughter aren't. I owe him. That debt comes first. Derek Mason will be unhappy. Then Derek Mason can handle his own problems. I'm out, and tell him if I see him near this hospital, I'll kill him myself. Tommy Carter's family is off limits. That's how honor works. Vincent ended the call, walked back to Lily's room. She was awake now, watching him, tense, ready to scream for help. He raised his hands, showed he was no threat. Then he spoke quietly. Miss Carter. Lily didn't answer, just watched him, calculating, the same way she'd watched Derek for 2 years, learning to read danger, learning to survive. I knew your father, Fallujah 2005, 2nd Battalion Echo Company. He saved my life. That got Lily's attention. Her hand moved to the jacket, to the unit patch. Vincent stepped into the room, slowly, carefully, not threatening. He looked at the sleeping Carol, at the unconscious Jack, at the 8-year-old girl who'd grown up too fast in ways no child should have to. Derek Mason hired people to hurt you. I was sent here to do that, but I won't. Your father saved my life. I owe him. And that debt means you're untouchable. You and your mother and Jack Morrison, all of you, protected. Why are you telling me this? Because you should know you're safe. Derek's debt to my employer is canceled. If we see Derek again, he's a dead man. But you're under protection. That's how honor works, even in our world. Lily processed this. Child brain trying to understand adult world where violence had rules, where debts got paid across decades, where honor existed even among criminals. What do I tell Jack? Tell him Tommy Carter is still saving people, even after death. Tell him some debts never expire. Vincent set the flowers on the table, turned to leave, stopped at the door. Your father was a good man, best Marine I served with. He talked about you all the time, about his baby girl, about how proud he was. He'd be proud of you now too. What you did, how you survived, how you protected your mother. That takes courage most adults don't have. Then he was gone, walking back through hospital corridors, signing out at the desk, disappearing into afternoon sun. A ghost who'd come to kill and instead chose honor, who'd honored Tommy Carter's memory by protecting the family he'd left behind. Lily sat still for a long time, processing, understanding. Her father had saved a man 13 years ago in Iraq. That man had just saved her today in Montana. Cause and effect rippling across time and space. Proof that good deeds echoed forever if you listened carefully enough. Jack woke at 4:32 p.m., intubation tube removed, breathing on his own, vision blurry, everything hurting, but alive. Carol's face the first thing he saw. Older now, 50 lines that hadn't been there at 43 when she'd left. But still Carol, still the woman he'd married 32 years ago, when they'd both been young and stupid and desperately in love. Hey, her voice soft, carrying 20 years of regret and relief and complicated emotions that didn't have names. Hey yourself, his voice rough, throat raw from intubation. Every word effort. You took a bullet. Not my first. Jack tried to smile. Failed. How long was I out? 18 hours. You died on the table. Doc brought you back. Figures. Can't get rid of me that easy. Carol laughed, crying, both. How are you still making jokes because the alternative's crying, and I've done enough of that for 2 lifetimes. Lilith appeared at the bedside. Jack saw her, saw the bandana on her wrist. Linda's bandana. His eyes filled. You kept it. You gave it to me. I'm keeping it. Good, that's good. Jack's hand found hers, squeezed weakly. Sarah, okay. Surgery scheduled. Tomorrow. They raised the money, $75,000 in 36 hours. Jack closed his eyes, exhaled, for the first time in 18 hours allowing himself to believe this might actually work, that Sarah might survive, that Lily might have a mother, that sometimes the good guys won. Tell me about the man. What man? The one with the flowers, the Marine? Lily's voice careful, watching Jack's face. He said he knew my dad, said my dad saved his life, said we're protected now. Jack absorbed this, understood immediately. Tommy Carter's reach extending across continents in decades, saving his granddaughter from beyond the grave. Honor trumping orders, proof that some debts never expired. Your dad's legacy, Jack's voice getting weaker. Sleep pulling him under. Tommy saved people. Those people save others. Chain of protection extending forever. That's immortality. That's what matters. He slept again. Exhausted. Healing. Carol held his hand. Lily sat beside them. 3 people connected by violence and loss and the stubborn refusal to let evil win. Family not by blood, but by choice. By showing up. By saying yes when everyone else looked away. While Jack slept, Sarah's surgery moved into critical phase. Dr. Ramirez, the best pancreatic surgeon in 3 states, 62 years old, former researcher turned surgeon when he'd realized he preferred saving lives to writing papers about saving lives. He'd reviewed Sarah's case. Stage 3 cancer, tumor wrapped around portal vein, poisoning damage from arsenic Derek had been feeding her. Survival odds 60% with surgery, 0% without. The operation began at 6 p.m. Expected duration, 6 hours. Expected complications numerous. Hour 2, the tumor was larger than imaging showed, adhered to blood vessels in ways that made removal dangerous. One wrong cut and Sarah would bleed out on the table. Dr. Ramirez worked carefully, precisely, the particular focus of a surgeon who'd done this 1,000 times but knew that complacency killed. Every tumor was unique, every patient different, every surgery a battle that could turn either way. Hour 4, massive bleeding, transfusion required. Type A positive running wide open, 6 units, 8 units, 10, Sarah's blood pressure crashing, heart rate climbing, body going into shock. The anesthesiologist looked worried. We might be losing her. Not today. Dr. Ramirez's hands moving fast, finding the bleeder, clamping, cauterizing, controlling hemorrhage through sheer skill and stubbornness. We're not losing anyone today. Hour 6, removing final tumor margin. Clean edges, good resection. But Sarah's heart was struggling, weakened from years of abuse and poisoning and stress that had nearly destroyed her. Hour 7, closing. Sarah's heart stopped. Code blue. The surgical team moving as one unit. Compressions, epi, defibrillator charging, clear, shock, nothing. Again, clear, shock, nothing. Come on, Sarah. Dr. Ramirez's voice barely audible. You've got a daughter who needs you. Fight. Third shock. The monitor found rhythm, weak but steady, blood pressure climbing, stabilizing. The particular relief that came when death lost another round. They finished at 1:47 a.m. 8 hours total. Sarah transferred to ICU next to Jack's room. Both critical, both fighting, both alive against odds that should have killed them. Lily sat between their rooms, afraid to leave either one, afraid if she stopped watching they'd disappear, that death would claim them while she blinked. Maggie brought her hot chocolate. Bear sat beside her, 6'6" and gentle, former linebacker turned mechanic turned protector of broken things. They're fighters, like you. What if fighting isn't enough? Then we fight harder. Bear's voice rumbling. Deep, comforting. That's all any of us can do. Show up, fight, refuse to quit. Your dad taught me that. Iraq 2010, I was injured, ready to give up. Tommy wouldn't let me. Said quitting's easy, living's hard, but hard's worth doing. Did you know my dad well? Well as anyone. We served together 8 months. He talked about you constantly, showed me pictures, told me about teaching you tactical thinking, about making you strong. He was proud of you even then. He'd be prouder now. Lily leaned against Bear, this man she'd met 6 hours ago, this stranger who'd become family through shared purpose, through choosing to show up, through refusing to let evil win unopposed. Craig Wheeler arrived at Sacred Heart at 3 a.m., couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about Derek, about the recording on his phone, about what he had to do even though it meant betraying his best friend, even though it meant admitting complicity, even though it meant facing consequences for silence. He found Laura Chen in the ICU waiting room. She'd been there for 6 hours, taking statements, coordinating evidence, building the case that would put Derek away permanently. Detective Chen Laura looked up, exhausted but alert, the particular awareness of a cop who never really went off duty. Craig Wheeler, I have something you need to hear. He played the recording, Derek's voice clear, unmistakable, planning murder. Detailing exactly how he'd eliminate Sarah and Jack and Lily. Evidence that transformed attempted murder into conspiracy. That elevated charges to federal jurisdiction. That would put Derek in prison for 30 years minimum. Laura listened to the whole thing, face impassive. When it finished, she looked at Craig for a long moment. Why now? Because I should have done it 2 years ago. Because staying silent makes me complicit. Because I have a daughter and I want her to grow up in a world where men like Derek face consequences. Playing this recording makes you a witness. Defense will go after you. Derek's lawyers will try to discredit you. You'll lose friends, maybe your job. I know. Craig's voice steady. I don't care. It's the right thing. Should have done it sooner. Laura nodded, respect in her eyes. The respect reserved for people who did hard things because they were right. I'll need you to come to the station. Make a formal statement. This recording, plus Lily's map, plus witness testimony means Derek's not walking free. Ever. Good. That's what he deserves. What he deserves and what he'll get are often different. But with this evidence, we might actually win. They won. The recording combined with Lily's documentation, combined with testimony from 4 previous victims who finally felt safe enough to speak, created a case even corrupt judges couldn't dismiss. Federal prosecutors took over, arrested Derek on new charges: conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, witness intimidation, interstate flight risk, no bail, federal detention, trial date set for 3 months away. Derek sat in a cell and realized the system he'd counted on to protect him had limits. That when enough evidence piled up, even connections couldn't save you. That Laura Chen had outmaneuvered him. That Craig had betrayed him. That everything he'd built was collapsing. The trial took 4 days. Craig testified. The recording played in open court. 4 previous victims took the stand. Laura Chen presented evidence that painted Derek as serial abuser who'd used his position as firefighter to intimidate victims, who'd manipulated the system, who'd nearly killed multiple women. The jury deliberated 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Judge Sarah Hartman sentenced Derek to 33 years federal prison, no parole eligibility, mandatory psychiatric evaluation, no contact with victims or their families, GPS monitoring for life if ever released. Derek Mason, age 38, would be 71 before he saw freedom again, if he saw it at all. Federal prisons didn't treat domestic abusers kindly, and men who hurt women and children found prison justice particularly harsh. Jack was discharged from Sacred Heart after 2 weeks. Shoulder healing slowly, physical therapy 3 times weekly. Couldn't ride for 6 weeks, the longest 6 weeks of his life, but alive, mobile, functioning. Sarah woke on day 4, groggy but conscious. First words asking for Lily. Lily climbed into bed beside her, both crying, both alive, both free. The cancer margins were clean. Chemotherapy would be required. Radiation maybe. 5-year survival odds, 75% with treatment. Not a guarantee, but infinitely better than the 3 months she'd had before. The foundation officially launched 2 months later. Linda's Legacy Foundation. Mission statement, simple. Help domestic violence victims escape. Fund medical treatment. Provide housing. Offer therapy. Create safe places where broken people could heal. Jack was president. Maggie operations director. Sarah outreach coordinator when she was healthy enough. Craig director of men's accountability program, helping potential abusers get treatment before violence erupted. The brotherhood provided security. The community provided funding. The network grew. First year they helped 63 women. More than Jack had dared hope. Proof that one person saying yes could create ripples that became waves, that became tsunamis of change. Jack Morrison stayed in Riverside, opened a bookstore on 3rd Street, specialized in military history and memoirs, became part of Jack's life again slowly. Coffee twice a week, dinner once a month, rebuilding connection destroyed by grief, learning how to love someone without demanding they fix the unfixable. One afternoon, 6 months after the shooting, Carol and Jack sat on his porch. Sunset painting, Montana sky, impossible colors. Both drinking terrible coffee from Romano's diner that Steele had dropped off. Why'd you do it? Risk everything for strangers. Jack was quiet a long time. Finally, because I couldn't save Linda. Because Tommy saved me. Because that little girl reminded me of our daughter. Because doing nothing would have killed me slower than any bullet. Because it was right. You can't save them all. No, but I can save some. And some is better than none. Carol reached over, took his hand. 20 years since they'd touched. 20 years of distance and pain and separate lives. But hands remembered, fit together the way they always had. I forgive you for Linda, for everything. It wasn't your fault. I see that now. Took me 20 years, but I see it. I forgive you too. For leaving, for blaming me, for staying away. I get it. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you need distance to survive. What about now? Now maybe we've learned enough to try again. Different this time. Built on grief, transformed into purpose instead of grief that destroys everything. I'd like that. So would I. They sat in comfortable silence, watching sun disappear. 2 people learning how to be family again, how to carry loss without letting it crush them, How to honor the dead by living well. Lily visited Jack every Sunday. They'd ride together once his shoulder healed, her on back of his bike, eventually on her own when she turned 16. He taught her to ride, to maintain, to understand machines, but more importantly, he taught her courage, that showing up mattered, that one person could make a difference, that honor demanded action, not just intention. Her nightmares faded slowly. Therapy helped, time helped, safety helped. The knowledge that Derek was locked away for decades helped. She started 8th grade 3 months late, but caught up fast. Smart kid, Tommy's daughter, Marine's jacket worn until it fell apart, then replaced with new one. Same patch, same legacy. Sarah recovered. Chemo was brutal, but she survived it. Cancer stayed away. 5 years, 10 years. Eventually, the doctors stopped waiting for it to return. She remarried 5 years after Derek's sentencing. Doc Washington, the man who'd saved her life and Jack's. The man who'd been there through recovery, through reconstruction, through learning how to live without fear. The brotherhood changed, town changed, no longer feared, respected. Invited to schools, to churches, to city council meetings. The Hells Angels who'd said yes when everyone else looked away, who'd proven that sometimes the most unlikely people become heroes. That patches and motorcycles didn't determine character. That courage came in leather vests and gray beards and hands scarred from decades holding broken things together. Years passed. The foundation grew. 823 women saved over 10 years. 47 chapters across 19 states. Laws changed. Perceptions shifted. The system that had protected Derek began protecting victims. Slowly, imperfectly, but changing. Jack Morrison kept riding, kept showing up, kept proving that Tommy Carter's legacy lived on, that Linda's death hadn't been meaningless. That pain could be transformed into purpose if you refused to let it consume you. On Lily's 18th birthday 5 years later, Jack stood beside her at Linda's grave, placed yellow roses, introduced his daughter to Tommy's granddaughter, two women connected by the man who'd saved both, connected by the refusal to let evil win, connected by the particular strength that comes from surviving the unsurvivable. That evening a call came. Another woman, another desperate situation, another chance to prove help existed. Jack looked at Lily, 18 now, Marine's ROTC uniform, strong, capable, ready. We going, damn right we are. They rode toward sunset, toward another woman who needed saving, toward another chance to honor Tommy and Linda and all the people who'd been lost but weren't forgotten, toward the work that never ended because evil never rested. But neither did they. The ride continued. The promise kept. Forever. Word count 6 word 21 words. 5 years moved like water through fingers. Fast when you weren't paying attention. Glacial when you needed time to stretch. Lily Carter turned 13 on a Tuesday in October and woke to sunlight streaming through curtains that hadn't existed in the old house. The house where Derek's fists had written stories on walls. This house told different tales. Safety, healing, the particular quiet that comes when violence finally stops holding its breath. She made breakfast, scrambled eggs the way Doc Washington had taught her, coffee for Mom, orange juice for herself. Normal things. The kind of morning routine that would have seemed impossible at 8 years old when every sunrise brought fresh fear about what the day would deliver. Sarah appeared in the kitchen doorway, 44 now with color in her cheeks that cancer hadn't managed to steal permanently. 5 years cancer-free. The surgeries and chemotherapy and brutal recovery all compressed into memory that hurt less with each passing season. She worked 3 days a week at Linda's Legacy Foundation, answered phones, coordinated resources, helped other women find the courage she'd barely scraped together that night at Romano's diner. Morning, sweetie. Morning, Mom. Sleep okay, better than I have in years. The lie was gentle. Sarah still had nightmares, probably always would, but nightmares beat reality, beat Derek's hands around her throat, beat poison in her food, beat dying at 39 with a daughter who'd witnessed the whole terrible unraveling. The doorbell interrupted breakfast. Mailman with certified letter. Sarah signed, opened it, went pale. What is it? Sarah handed the envelope to Lily. Montana State Prison official letterhead. Inmate correspondence. Derek Mason requesting permission to write to minor child Lily Carter. Request denied per protective order. But enclosed the letter he'd attempted to send. Lily unfolded single sheet, Derek's handwriting. She remembered it from before, when he'd leave notes on the counter. Pick up milk. Love you. Casual intimacy of marriage hiding brutality underneath. The letter began simply. No drama, no manipulation. Just words on paper from a man who'd destroyed everything he'd touched. Dear Lily, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know I was sick. PTSD from the fire where those children died. Alcohol, my father's voice saying, real men dominate. I became the monster I swore I'd never be. I'm getting treatment here. Therapy, medication, understanding what I did and why. It doesn't excuse anything, but maybe understanding prevents the next Derek Mason. I think about you every day. The map you drew, the courage you showed. 8 years old and braver than I've been at 38. I hope you're safe. I hope you never have to think about me again. But if hearing from the monster helps other victims, somehow I'm here. I'm sorry. Derek, Lily read it twice. 3 times. Searching for manipulation, for hidden threats, for the Derek who terrorized her childhood. Instead, she found something worse. Humanity. The suggestion that monsters weren't born fully formed, but created through trauma and choices in systems that failed everyone involved. What do you think Sarah's question? Careful, neutral, letting Lily form her own conclusions. I think he sounds human. And that's terrifying because it's easier when they're just evil. The phone rang before Sarah could respond. Jack Morrison's number. Lily answered on speaker. You two see the news. No, why turn on Channel 7? Now. Sarah grabbed the remote. Local news showing prison transport van overturned on Highway 47. Reporter speaking urgently. Escaped inmate Derek Mason considered armed and dangerous. Prison officials believe escape was coordinated with outside help. Manhunt underway involving state police and FB. The screen showed Derek's mugshot. 5 years older than the parking lot confrontation. Grayer, thinner. But the same eyes, same face that had filled Lily's nightmares for years. Sarah dropped the coffee mug. Ceramic shattered against tile. Exactly like 5 years ago when this had started. History repeating in broken dishes. Jack's voice through the phone steady as bedrock. I'm mobilizing the Brotherhood. You two are going to Maggie's shelter. Right now, don't pack. Don't wait. Just go. But no buts. Derek escaped during medical transport to outside facility. Guard in critical condition. Derek took his weapon. This isn't some turning himself in. This is someone desperate and dangerous. 20 minutes later, Lily and Sarah sat in Maggie's shelter. The same building where this had started. Same room, different circumstances. Maggie's 70 now, but still sharp. Still running operations like military campaign. Still saving women who'd run out of places to hide. Brotherhood members arrived in shifts. Bear, Steel, Chains, 47 total, including new prospects. Craig Wheeler's daughter Emma among them. 15 years old and fierce. Training to carry the legacy her father had almost destroyed. Jack appeared at noon. 67 now, with more gray and deeper lines, but still moving like the Marine he'd been 50 years ago. He knelt beside Lily's chair, eye level. The same gesture he'd made 5 years ago when she'd been 8 and terrified and documenting abuse in pencil sketches. You holding up Lily showed him Derek's letter. Jack read slowly, face revealing nothing. When he finished, he folded it carefully and handed it back. What do you think? I think people are complicated. I think Derek's sick. I think sickness doesn't excuse what he did. And I think him being out there is dangerous regardless of how sorry he feels. The phone in Lily's pocket buzzed, unknown number. She almost ignored it. Something made her answer. Lily, it's me. Derek's voice, older, rougher, but unmistakable. Sarah lunged for the phone. Jack stopped her, gestured to keep Derek talking. Chains was already tracing the call on his laptop. How did you get this number? I have friends. People who think I got railroaded. People who believe rehabilitation matters more than punishment. What do you want? I want to explain. The letter wasn't enough. I need you to understand that monsters are made, not born. My father beat me. I swore I'd never be him. But trauma doesn't ask permission. You still had choices. You're right, and I made wrong ones every single time. That's why I escaped. Lily's voice dropped. What are you going to do? What I should have done 10 years ago, and this, one way or another. The line went dead. Chains looked up from laptop. Burner phone, downtown Riverside, moving fast. He's on foot. Jack stood, gathered the Brotherhood with a look. They moved to defensive positions, shelter locked down, every exit covered, every window reinforced, waiting for Derek to make his move. Hours passed. Sunset painted Montana sky orange and purple. Temperature dropped. October cold settling into bones. Nothing happened. No Derek, no threats, just waiting in the particular tension that comes before violence erupts. At midnight, Jack's phone rang. Detective Laura Chen, now promoted to captain after a decade of fighting corruption from inside the system. We tracked Derek to the old industrial district. Thermal imaging shows someone in the abandoned warehouse on 5th Street. SWAT's mobilizing, but I wanted to give you heads up. Thanks, Laura. We'll stay put. Jack. Yeah, whatever happens tonight, don't do anything that gets you arrested. Derek's not worth your freedom. Jack ended the call, looked at Steele. Gather 6 brothers. We're going to that warehouse. The hell we are. Steele's voice flat. Laura said SWAT's mobilizing. She didn't say we couldn't get there first. Brother. That's exactly what she said. Jack grabbed his jacket. The Hell's Angels vest with patches that told 30 years of stories. Then I'm going alone, like hell you are. Chain stood, grabbed his own vest. Bear, ghost, smoke, iron. One by one they rose. 7 men total, combined age over 450 years. Combined scars beyond counting. Combined determination to finish what had started 5 years ago. Lily stood. No. Jack's voice carrying the tone that had ordered 19-year-olds into combat. You stay here where it's safe. He's my monster. I get to face him. You're 13 years old. I was 8 when this started. I've earned the right to see it end. Jack looked at Sarah, looking for backup. Sarah just nodded. She's right. This is her story too. The warehouse on 5th Street had been abandoned since the mining bust in the 90s. 3 stories of rusted metal and broken windows. Perfect place to hide. Perfect place to die. They approached on foot, motorcycles parked 3 blocks away. Silent, professional. The kind of tactical movement you learned in places where mistakes meant body bags. Derek sat on the loading dock, visible in moonlight, gun in his lap, not hiding, not running, just sitting there like he'd been waiting. Jack stepped forward, alone, hands visible. No weapon drawn. Derek, Jack Morrison, I was wondering if you'd come. You called my family, threatened them. Of course I came. I didn't threaten, I explained. There's a difference. Jack moved closer. 10 feet, 8. Derek's hand twitched toward the gun but didn't lift it. What are you doing here, Derek? Ending it, one way or another. You could surrender, get the treatment you're talking about in that letter. Derek laughed. Bitter sound, no warmth. You really think they'll treat me? After I escaped, after I hurt that guard, I'm going back to prison for another 20 years minimum. I'll be 60 when I get out. If I get out. So you're what? Going to shoot it out with police? Derek lifted the gun. But not aimed at Jack, aimed at his own head. I'm going to make sure I never hurt anyone again. Only way to guarantee it. Lily stepped out from behind Jack. 13 years old, wearing jacket 3 sizes too big. Her father's Marine's jacket, the one she'd worn that first night at Romano's diner. Derek's hand shook. Lily, get back. This isn't for you to see. You're wrong, her voice steady, clear. The voice of someone who'd survived and refused to let survival be the end of the story. You're wrong about it being the only way. You're wrong about treatment being impossible. You're wrong about everything except one thing. You did hurt us, poisoned my mom, beat her, tried to kill Jack, made my childhood a nightmare. Derek lowered the gun slightly. I know, and I'm sorry, and sorry doesn't fix anything. No, it doesn't. But you know what else doesn't fix anything? Killing yourself. That won't give my mom her health back. Won't give Jack his daughter back. Won't help the next woman trapped with the next Derek Mason. So what am I supposed to do? Live with what I did? Yes, live with it. get treatment, get healed, then help others heal. That's how you pay the debt. Not with death, with life, with work, with actually becoming the person you pretended to be. Derek stared at her. 13-year-old child explaining redemption to 38-year-old man. The gun trembled in his grip. I don't deserve that. Nobody deserves anything. We just get what we get and choose what to do with it. You got sick. You made terrible choices. Now you get to choose different ones, or you get to take the coward's way out. Which are you, Derek, the monster, or the man trying not to be? The moment stretched, taut as wire. Derek's finger on the trigger. Jack tensed to tackle him. Brotherhood ready to intervene. Derek's shoulders shook, tears streaking down face. I'm so tired. I know. Lily's voice gentle now. The particular gentleness of someone who understood exhaustion that lived in bones. I know you're tired. I know you're scared. I know you think you don't deserve help. But you're wrong. Everyone deserves a chance to heal. Even monsters. Especially monsters. Because if we just kill them, we guarantee the cycle continues. Hurt people, until we heal the hurt. Derek lowered the gun completely, set it on concrete beside him, raised his hands. Surrender. I'll get treatment, real treatment, whatever it takes, however long it takes. The gunshot cracked through the night. Not Derek's gun. Sniper. SWAT team positioning on adjacent roof. They'd seen Derek lift the weapon, assumed threat, fired to neutralize. The bullet hit Derek's shoulder, spun him sideways. He went down hard, screaming, not rage, pain, confusion. Jack moved, combat medic training kicking in after 50 years, pressure on wound, assess damage. Through and through, messy but not fatal, stay down. Help's coming. Police swarmed, SWAT team, state troopers, FBI, Laura Chen at the front looking exhausted and furious and relieved. Stand down, all of you, the subject's contained. Derek looked up at Jack, blood soaking through shirt, face pale with shock. You saved me. After everything. You saved me. Jack pressed harder on the wound. That's what I do. Save people. Even the ones who don't deserve it. Especially the ones who don't deserve it. Ambulance arrived. Paramedics took over. Derek loaded on gurney, conscious, stable. Heading to same hospital where Sarah had been saved 5 years ago. Where second chances got handed out to people brave enough to take them. Laura approached Jack. Chains. Lily. You three are lucky I don't arrest you for interfering with a police operation. But you won't. No, because technically you were here first. And technically Derek surrendered before my sniper fired. And technically this whole thing ends better because a 13-year-old girl talked down a suicidal man better than my negotiation team could have. She's special. Jack's voice carrying pride, carrying hope, carrying the particular wonder of watching someone transform pain into purpose. Yeah, she is. The next 6 months blurred. Derek transferred from hospital to Montana State Hospital, not prison, psychiatric facility, court-ordered treatment, minimum 5 years before release consideration, maximum indefinite. Diagnosis came back complex, PTSD from the fire, alcohol addiction, borderline personality disorder inherited from father who died in prison for domestic violence, generational trauma compressed into violence that had nearly killed everyone it touched. Treatment was brutal. Medication, therapy, group sessions with other men who'd hurt people, confronting damage done, writing apology letters to victims, most letters rejected. Sarah refused hers, couldn't forgive, wouldn't forget, but understood sickness didn't excuse behavior even when it explained motivation. 3 letters got accepted. Women Derek had hurt before Sarah, women who needed to hear admission of guilt, women who needed to see that accountability was possible even if redemption wasn't guaranteed. Jack visited Derek once, 6 months into treatment, not forgiveness, understanding. The man who'd lost his daughter to violence sitting across from the man who'd perpetuated violence. Neither comfortable, neither complete, both trying. Why'd you save me? Derek's question direct. No manipulation, just genuine confusion. Because someone should have saved you before you became this. Before your father beat the humanity out of you. Before the fire broke something inside you. Before you decided hurting others was the only way to feel powerful. Someone should have intervened. They didn't. So I will. I don't understand. Jack leaned forward. My daughter Linda was taken 30 years ago. Never found her. Spent a decade searching. Another 2 decades trying to forgive myself for failing. Then I met Lily, Tommy Carter's granddaughter, and I realized I couldn't save Linda, but I could save others. Not just victims, perpetrators too. Break the cycle. Heal the wound before it infects another generation. So I'm what a project know. You're a human being who got sick and made terrible choices. And now you're a human being getting treatment and making different choices. That's not a project. That's redemption. Real kind. The kind that takes years and hurts and never fully erases damage done. But the only kind worth attempting. Derek absorbed this, processing through medication fog and therapy breakthroughs and the slow, painful process of becoming different than you've been. Thank you for not letting me die, for believing I could be more than the worst thing I did. Don't thank me yet. Thank me in 5 years when you're out and working to help other men before they hurt someone. Thank me when you break the cycle your father started. Thank me when you prove that healing is possible. I will, however long it takes. I will. Linda's Legacy Foundation expanded. Craig Wheeler became director of new program, Men's Accountability and Rehabilitation Initiative, helping potential abusers get treatment before violence erupted, addressing root causes, trauma, addiction, learned behavior, mental illness, poverty, the complicated web that created domestic violence. First year, they helped 43 men, second year, 87, third year, over 100. Prevention instead of intervention, healing instead of just rescue. Montana legislature passed landmark reform, mandatory mental health evaluation for domestic violence arrests, treatment options before incarceration, restorative justice circles, victim input throughout process. Sarah testified at the hearing, standing in front of state senators, telling her story, advocating for the system that had saved her and might save others. The system didn't fail me. People within the system did. Judges who looked the other way. Police who believed the firefighter over the victim. Laws that prioritize reconciliation over safety. We can do better. We must do better, not just for victims, for everyone trapped in cycles of violence so they don't know how to escape. The bill passed, named Sarah's Law. Sarah Carter, who'd survived and decided surviving wasn't enough, who'd transformed personal trauma into systemic change, who'd proved that one person's courage could shift entire structures if they refused to stay silent. 5 years became 10. Lily turned 18. ROTC scholarship to University of Montana. Full ride. Marines track after graduation. Following her father's footsteps but carving her own path. Leadership focused on preventing trauma instead of managing aftermath. The foundation through ceremony. 10 years of operation, 823 women helped. 47 chapters across 19 states. Linda's legacy becoming national movement. Proof that grassroots organizing and stubborn refusal to accept injustice could change the world piece by piece. Lily stood at podium, 18 years old in Marines ROTC dress uniform, red bandana tied around wrist, the same bandana Jack had given her 10 years ago. Linda Morrison's blood still faintly visible in faded fabric. Legacy made tangible. Her speech was shorter than she'd planned. Direct. The way Marines communicated. 10 years ago, I was 8 years old documenting abuse because adults weren't paying attention. My stepdad poisoned my mom, beat her, tried to kill the man who protected us. And a biker named Jack Morrison said yes when everyone else looked away. She gestured to Jack in the front row. 72 now, Carol Morrison beside him. They'd reconciled 5 years ago, not remarried, just together. Partnership built on shared grief transformed into shared purpose. Jack taught me courage is contagious. That family transcends blood. That showing up matters even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. Tonight I'm here to say we're not done. 823 women is incredible, but there are thousands more, millions more. Worldwide, we keep going, we keep showing up. We keep proving that help exists. The audience applauded. 300 people, Survivors, advocates, law enforcement, politicians, media. Proof that transformation was possible when enough people decided it mattered. After the ceremony, Lily found Jack outside. He was smoking cigarette he wasn't supposed to have. Doctor's orders after the heart incident 3 years ago. But some habits died hard. Those'll kill you. So will a lot of things. At least cigarettes taste good. Lily sat beside him, comfortable silence between them. The kind that comes from shared trauma and shared triumph. From being family by choice instead of accident. I'm scared of what college Marines growing up, leaving mom, leaving you, not being able to help everyone, becoming someone who stops paying attention. Jack flicked ash. Those are good fears, healthy ones. Means you haven't gotten comfortable. Complacency kills more people than violence does. Will you visit every month? I'll ride up. We'll get coffee. You'll tell me about classes and training and all the ways you're becoming who you're meant to be. And when you can't ride anymore, then you'll come home and we'll sit on my porch and tell stories and remember the work. That's the deal. You go change the world. I'll wait here and be proud. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. Jack put his arm around her, old man and young woman. Connected by dead girl's legacy and dead soldier's granddaughter, and the particular alchemy of pain transformed into purpose. One more ride, Jack's words soft. Promise and request combined. Where are we going? Somewhere we should have gone 10 years ago. Somewhere we've avoided because it hurt too much. But it's time. They rode at dawn, Jack's Harley, Lily on her own bike now, graduation gift from the Brotherhood. Smaller than Jack's, faster, built for someone with a future instead of someone carrying past. The cemetery sat on the hill overlooking Riverside. Linda Morrison's grave in northeast corner under cottonwood that had grown 3 feet in 10 years. Small headstone. Simple. Linda Morrison, born March 12, 1988, died June 14, 1990, beloved daughter, forever 7. They knelt together. Jack placed yellow roses, Linda's favorite. Lily added white lilies, her namesake flower. Hey, baby girl. Jack's voice rough with decade of unshed tears finally breaking free. Brought someone I want you to meet. Officially, Lily Carter. She's 18 now, Marines bound, smart as hell, braver than I ever was. She's been wearing your bandana for 10 years, taking care of it, honoring you by living. Lily touched the stone, cool granite under her fingers. I never met you, Linda, but I know you through your dad, through the foundation, through 823 women who wouldn't be alive without you. Your death saved my life, and I promise I won't waste it. I'll make it count. Prove your 7 years created something that'll last centuries. They sat in silence. Sunrise warming their backs. Birds starting morning chorus. The world continuing despite grief. Because of grief. Transforming loss into something resembling hope if you squinted right. Jack stood, helped Lily to her feet. Ready for what to ride. One more woman needs help. Amanda Chen. 2 kids. Husband getting worse. We got the call this morning. Lily looked at the grave, at her father's daughter, at the legacy she'd inherited through tragedy and choice. Then let's go. They rode back to Romano's diner. Table 9 empty, but reserved. Frank Romano, 84 now, and still making terrible coffee. Still showing up. Still providing safe harbor for people running from storms. Jack's phone sat on the table. Waiting, it rang at exactly 7. Amanda Chen's number. Scared voice on the other end. This is Amanda. Someone gave me this number. Said you help people. I have 2 kids. My husband, he's... Her voice broke. Jack's expression didn't change. He'd heard this story before. Would hear it again. The endless cycle of violence and fear and desperate calls for help. Amanda, help is coming. Where are you? She gave the address. Jack wrote it down. Looked at Lily across the table. You ready to lead this one? Lily tied the red bandana tighter around her wrist. Felt the weight of Linda's legacy. Tommy Carter's courage. Jack's example. Sarah's survival. 823 women who had come before. Damn right I am. They gathered the Brotherhood. 47 strong. Emma Wheeler among them. 15 and fierce. Craig's daughter proving redemption extended across generations. Bear, Steele, Chains, Maggie, Doc. The family Jack had built from broken pieces and stubborn refusal to let evil win. Lily rode point, Jack followed, role reversal, teacher becoming student, guardian passing torch to the next generation. The road stretched ahead, infinite, full of women who needed saving, full of men who needed healing, full of children who deserved childhoods without fear. The bikes roared, engines harmonizing into something that sounded like thunder and promise combined. They disappeared into morning light, heading toward Amanda, toward two kids, toward another chance to prove courage was contagious and help existed and hope wasn't just word people used when they ran out of options. Behind them, Romano's diner faded, table 9 waiting, phone ready, system established, network activated, 824 and counting. Ahead, the highway stretched toward horizon. Montana sky endless blue, mountains rising eternal. And riding point was Lily Carter, 18 years old, Marines bound, wearing dead girl's bandana, carrying dead father's courage, leading broken angels who'd learned to fly again. The work continued. The ride never ended. And the promise they'd made to Linda Morrison 30 years ago kept getting fulfilled one woman at a time, one life at a time forever. Because that's what angels do. Even broken ones, especially broken ones. They show up. They say yes. They ride. Word count 6 or 17 words.